Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode with me, William Wallace, on my show, William Wallace for America. And as you know, I love getting people informed. And today, I'm with an institution and Daniel Erspamer of that institution called the Pelican Institute. And we're going to talk about Constitutional Amendment number 4. As I've told you before, there's 7 constitutional amendments in this next ballot. And to avoid when you go in there and you don't know if you're voting for it or against it, or you don't even know what it's about, and you kind of read the brief description and you're trying to figure out about that constitutional amendment and the limited time to vote, either way, just watch this video and share the other ones that I've got about these amendments, and you're going to be able to get a good education. And we're going to keep it very simple in these videos so anybody can understand it, so your gut feeling will tell you what the right way to go with it is. Daniel, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I love having you on, and we're talking about Constitutional Amendment number 4, Bo Billier in Lake Charles, and he's State Rep District number 48, is the one who wrote this. Is that correct?
That's right. Bo's been a champion for a number of things, but particularly this issue.
What is this amendment? What's the name of it, and what's it about? Let's first open the doors and let's look at it overall.
Sure. So this is Constitutional Amendment number 4, which is our state expenditure limit. Quick overview, this is about making sure we have a budget that is stable, that is predictable, and so we have good government that actually encourages job growth and economic opportunity.
So right now, I guess the way it works right now is basically, whether government's having a good year, bad year. Now keep in mind I say government, but it's really us.
That's
it's really
right.
The people. If our state's having a good year, we're having a good year. If our state's having a bad year, we're having a bad year. But I often ask the question that sometimes we're having a bad year, but you see how much money the government just keeps spending.
Yeah.
And you wonder, wait a minute, and then there's deficits and problems later. How does this constitutional amendment solve that problem?
Sure. So, as your viewers may know, the state has had a spending limit on the books since the 1990s, but the unfortunate fact is it's not very effective. And so the result of that, especially in an economy like ours, that's oil and gas based, that's very sales tax based, we have a lot of ups and downs. And so the goal here is to smooth out those ups and downs, to make sure that we don't see what we've had in the last few years. Anybody of your listeners heard of the fiscal cliff that we've been facing? So this is about making fiscal cliffs a thing of the past. What happens now, of course, is, as you said, we have a good year, the economy grows, and the state spends more money. And then we spend every dollar we can, basically we bring in. And then when we have a not so good year, like we've had a couple of times in the last decade, we have to either raise taxes or have dramatic cuts to spending and services. It's much better if we can smooth those ups and downs out and make, a more stable, predictable government so our elected officials can be better stewards of our taxpayer dollars.
This is almost, to me, and part of the analogy, but a way I like to see it is, it's almost like the government has diabetes.
That's right.
And this is like the insulin that kind of levels it out. Instead of having those spikes and those lows,
that's right.
This constitutional amendment is kind of like the insulin that's going to even it out. So it basically is going to, this constitutional amendment is going to put teeth into a bill or amendment or constitutional law that already exists.
That's right. It makes it better. It makes it more predictable. And the other thing that's important to note about this particular amendment is it has an absolute cap at 5%. So government under this could not grow more than 5% in a year, no matter what the situation, which allows us, again, to be better stewards of the money, to put money into the rainy day fund,
right,
and protect for situations like we're going through right now, which is a big challenge.
I heard our unemployment went from $1 billion in the fund to now like almost $1 million or 70 million, something. It's like a drastic drop.
Yeah, we've had traditionally one of the better managed unemployment funds in the country. It's one of the handful of things we've been pretty good at.
Yeah.
And now, just as we've seen government shutdowns and jobs going away, we're at real risk to running out of money in that program.
So let me try to understand something here. And you said that you keep mentioning these indicators. So basically, in a down year, What are the factors or the indicators that will affect the reduction in income, or the reduction in spending, and what factors helps increase that spending when need be?
Right. So the budget limit is going to be based on three main factors. The first is personal income. How much money are the citizens, the taxpayers of Louisiana making? What's the growth in that number? The second is gross, it's called GDP, gross domestic product. It's the sort of standard measure of economic activity in a state. If you add up all the economic activity, we're going to get the GDP.
Okay.
So what's the growth in GDP? And then perhaps the most important one is population. Are people coming into the state?
Right.
Are we leaving the state? So if you look at
we hear the argument, everybody's leaving the state, and how are we going to support it?
Right.
And this is going to tie it to that.
Well, it's just common sense. If you have fewer people both paying taxes and consuming services, you shouldn't need quite so big of a government to
Right.
meet that demand. So it's really just a common sense policy that says if we've got people coming into the state, if people are making more money and thus paying more to the government and their taxes, economic growth is thriving, then government should be able to grow to respond to that. In other years, we ought to slow that growth, like we've seen in the last couple where we have net out-migration. People are leaving the state more than they're coming in. The GDP number has been flat, roughly, and personal income has been down in some cases or up just a little bit. So what we would have seen in the last couple years is a much more steady government rather than these big
It
swings.
sounds to me like this is a very unbiased, kind of across-the-board, sensible, common sense way of controlling government, in such a way that it makes the government a better steward of our tax dollars.
That's right. And to put it in political terms, the conservatives may like this in part because it constrains the growth of government. It says we're not going to have these wild swings of state budget dollars being spent on big new projects. For conservatives who've complained about outsized growth of government, this is a check on it. For those on the left side of the spectrum, this gives predictability. This gives them an argument to say, hey, we've actually had some economic growth. We should grow government a little bit this year. So it makes it predictable for everyone. It's a good government measure. It's worked well in lots of other states where it's passed. And I'll mention, in addition to the constitutional amendment, there was a statutory piece, something that was just in law, and the governor signed it. So this has broad bipartisan support, and it's something really everyone in the state should be able to get behind.
I absolutely love it. So again, share this video with anybody that you think might be interested, or watch it again if you need to get a little bit better feel for it. But it sounds to me like this is something that we can all get behind, no matter what side of the fence anybody's on. It saves money when it needs to be saved. It spends it when we have it, and it protects our money for not only our state but for the future of our children. And in such a way, and also I guess it would attract other people to come here when our government's spending our money in a smart way. It attracts people.
Yeah, if you ask business leaders what are some of the main factors that they use to decide whether to grow in a state, and predictable, reliable government is one of the major factors. Obviously, they're looking at tax rates and they're looking at infrastructure and all those things. This helps across the board, by the way. But one of the things they look at is this a stable government? Is this a state we can predict what our taxes are going to look like and what our burden is? This is a way to help solve that and bring more jobs to our state.
Do they know how to prepare for the good time, or have fun in the good times and prepare for the bad times?
That's right.
Thank you, everybody, for watching this. And remember, Pelican Institute, look into them. They're doing some good things for our state. Share the video. And also remember, please, you can also find me on YouTube, William Wallace for America, Twitter, and Instagram. Please follow me and share the video. And thank you guys, and have a great day.